So today we are going to talk about test automation best practices. Unveiling our automation best practices, how we test at BrowserStack. Few housekeeping items. Today's session will run for 60 minutes. The session is being recorded. All participants will remain muted. The recording would be made available for all attendees. There is dedicated 15 minutes Q&A session at the end. During the session, if you have any question, please pass it on to the Q&A panel, and our panelists will try to answer them. And if not, we will be answering at the end. All right. Kindness is a language deaf can hear and blind can see. Similarly, quality is an experience that can be felt and realized throughout the STLC journey by different personas. By the way, my name is Ajay Vishambran, a quality thought leader with 22 years of experience in the field of quality engineering, solving real problems for generative AI products, DevOps, cloud, and system engineering. I'm the host and speaker for today's sessions. With me, we have experts in automation Kush, veteran in building test ops for BrowserStack, Snehi, guru of automate and app automate product for BrowserStack. Welcome, Kush and Snehi. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Rajesh. Hello, everyone. I'm Kush. I've been associated with BrowserStack for more than 6.5 years now. I have a total around 10 years of experience in QA domain. Over the time, I got a chance to work on various aspects like manual testing, automation, performance, and extra. My main focus has been quality with speed and innovations. Thanks. Over to you, Sneh.
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Snehi. I've been associated with BrowserStack for over a year now. I have a decade-plus experience as an automation engineer working on desktop and web apps with primary focus on quality deliveries at ease. It's a delight to see the number of people who have joined and share our interests. Thank you so much for your time. So let's start with our automation journey. Over to you, Ajesh.
Thank you, Snehi and Kush, for the sweet and short introduction. Before I dive further, I would like to understand from which part of the world you are joining from. Probably you can use your mobile QR scanner and scan the QR displayed on the Zoom, and you can mention 2255 as a code and provide your input. So that will help us to understand which part of the world you are joining, and we'll start our journey together. That's amazing to see. We have truly a global audience today with attendees from countries around the world. It's incredible to see such a diverse group of professionals and enthusiasts gathered here. It's amazing. Okay, so let's understand. Wow, nice. Okay, so let me move on. We discuss quality is experience that product makers users feel throughout its journey in STLC. Let's consider 8 personas and dive deep to understand what quality means to them. So, end user and customer. Snehi, will you be able to give your point of view in terms of what would quality mean for end user and the customer?
Yeah, definitely, Ajesh. So from my understanding, when I'm thinking about an end user, what I majorly believe in is they are evaluating based on the usability, the functionality, the performance, and the overall satisfaction that they would receive from the product. Similarly, when we're thinking about a customer, the primary difference that I see is that they look at the value for money and how well does it align to their business goals. To give a very naive and a basic example, cat food is the customer for the cat food would be the owner of the cat, whereas the cat who eats the food is the end user.
That's a nice example. Nice. So now, if I further break down these remaining 6 personas, tech to one side, developer, security, system admin, Kush, what do you think would be the quality for them?
Yeah, sure. So for developer, like if you consider developer, evaluation factors would be like maintaining coding standards, usability, ease of troubleshooting, availability of appropriate development tools. When it comes to security analysis, like major factors would be like vulnerability assessment, resistance to external attacks, data protection measures, like those. And when it comes to system administrations, the evaluation factor would be like installation, configuration, scalability, reliability of the system integrations.
All right. So Snehi, how is quality going to be different for QA, business analysis, and compliance?
Yeah, totally. So when you're talking about quality assurance or testers, the way they analyze quality for a software product would be how much is the passing rate for a functional and non-functional test. How much is the product actually getting aligned with the briefs that we've been given? How much bug-free it is? Whereas a business analyst would majorly be looking at the accuracy of the business logic that the product is solving, or the effectiveness of the overall business workflows. If I think about compliance officer, they would be majorly looking at, let's say, privacy guidelines, data protection regulations, or other relevant compliance requirements. If we see overall, they all are evaluating quality, but each have their own way of evaluation.
Well said. I think summarize it. If you look at, there is a lot more we need to think from a quality perspective. To add on, probably think about support and maintenance personas. So for them, clear documentation, ease of troubleshooting, availability of support resources, and software adaptability to change or updates. So this is another way support and maintenance people look into it. So there is lot more way as a quality engineer we need to evaluate quality. Moving further, and this I'm sure this is a most familiar diagram for an SDE or estate. And any organization which has established continuous CI/CD, then you are aware about this. But having said CI/CD established well, do you see still engineers facing challenges in many places due to the fact most of the tools are fragmented? And are they able to do the continuous delivery, or are they able to do anytime release? Success of any time release is based on many factors. So to start with, probably development best practices. So maybe in industry, you have trunk-based development and GitLab flow, GitHub flow, Git flow. There are many more. And followed by best practices. So now if I zoom in little inside onto CI, you see that we have, so where is the time spent by most of the engineers? I mean, when the issues happen, right? So they spend long hours debugging, identifying the root causes. So wait period for a developer to get a feedback on what are the commit they made or code commit which is they made. And choosing the right impacted script for automation or SDE. Or do you use ML to try these issues? And do you have a capability to build automatic bug logging? So these are the few factors which makes developer experience a different. So having the right automation script in place and having the best practices for automation would be one other way to provide the best developer experience. Before I dive further, I would like to understand from the audience, what is the wait period for an engineer to get the result from the regression run? Maybe based on your experience working in your product, in your organization, I would like you guys to share your feedback in the poll which is being posted. Maybe we'll spend little time here. Maybe I'll give another 30 seconds for audience to share their feedback. So is that it takes less than 3 hours, less than 2 hours, less than 1 hour, or it takes more than 4 hours? So probably I would look forward sharing your feedback. Nice. I think if you look at the poll, then the majority, 34% is above 4 hours, and 23 is less than 1 hour, and 21 2 hours, and 3 hours. So we have mix of responses. That's nice, and majority have more than 4 hours. Let me move on. So now during this journey, Snehi, in BrowserStack, how different you guys developed this test jobs and made your life simplified?
Yeah, thanks, Ajesh. So, okay, so before we start into how BrowserStack and we'll stitch it back together, I would actually would like to highlight. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you so much. So, yeah, I would like to, I would just want to say, what is an automation suite? An automation suite has a list of scripts that are actually executing your functional on functional scenarios, majorly our functional tests. And that gives us a faster way to come to a conclusion of how our particular test build has behaved. Now, when anybody starts their automation journey, and this is this conclusion we've come up with after reading multiple blogs, consulting our older friends in the industry, even our internal QA folks, and the experience that we've gained throughout. At the beginning, an automation suite consists of majorly 3 types of tests, which is one is unit tests, the other is end-to-end tests, integration tests, or UI tests, multiple names to the same. And then it's the API tests. Now, with these tests in picture, what happens is we have, so when we're talking about the function, when we're talking about the functionality, this is the way we even cover here at BrowserStack, that we prioritize unit tests, then API tests, and then UI tests because of the stability criteria that each of them performs. Having said this, yes, unit tests are the pre-built tests, and API and UI would be the post-built tests. Now, once our suite has come to a satisfactory, let's say a satisfactory functional coverage, then we also start analyzing other kind of testing. I actually also wanted to highlight one more thing, that there is, when we're taking a decision of whether to write a UI test or an API test, there's a thin line. Generally, an API test can be written as a UI test as it mimics the user behavior, but we should always prefer implementing an API over UI for faster execution and better stability. And yeah, once we have the functional coverage, a satisfactory functional coverage, what we can see is then we observe bugs like, let's say, a cart checkout not working on Chrome, but working on Safari. These kinds of scenarios and these kind of testing would happen in a cross-browser testing functionality. Yeah, and that is what we call CBT. Now, Kush would help us give it a small demo that makes us understand what CBT is. Having also, we would be sharing our Git repo that Kush would be showing now at the end of the session. Over to you, Kush.
Cool. Yep. Hope my screen is visible to you guys.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So yes, rightly said, Snake. So this is a perfect example for the browser testing. Like some of the workflow will work on one of the browser, or some of the workflow like might behave differently in another browser. Correct. So we can cover these kind of scenarios in the cross-browser testing. Now, how you can enable the cross-browser testing with your show? It could be local, it could be with the client provider. Let's take an example of a dummy site. So this is a dummy site we are taking today. So let's take an example of add to cart scenario. So this is a simple case we are trying out right now. Add to cart function should work over here. So for the same, we have written the script in the Nightwatch.js framework, which is UI-based framework. So this is a simple script we have written. Now, if you want to run this particular script on the different browser, Chrome and the Firefox, considering Chrome and Firefox you are running right now on your local, simply I have written the script and we can just execute like this. Okay. So what it does, it basically execute Chrome and Firefox on your local. So currently my browsers are popping up on the different screen. I'm not able to show you right now, but you can definitely see it in the script. Correct. So Chrome and Firefox are being executed. It's being completed. Now, what we have achieved with this, there is a single script with this. We have executed in multiple browsers. Now, what is the benefit of it? You can save your execution time by parallelizing the browser execution, and you can increase your browser coverage. Now, going to next, if we want to, consider there your website is supporting the greater than 90 Chrome version. Now you want to test your website on the Chrome 90 version or 91, 92 version, right? So how would you test those things? Now it would be very difficult to install different browser version or local. So for those kind of things, you can use a cloud provider like BrowserStack. Now, how to configure BrowserStack with this particular framework? So I'm using again Nightwatch.js. Simple config over here. Added the Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So I'll just execute that suite for you as well. So that will give you the better idea. Now, yeah. So we're executing the suite. So we are using the automate product of the BrowserStack. You can see Chrome, Firefox, Safari being executed. It's being started. Now let me take you through the automate product. Now, if you can see, this is the build which being created. It's executing on the 3 browsers. Now you can see we are running on the OS Mixer. It also supports a multiple platforms, Windows, OS, like different versions. You can see this executed Chrome, OS X, same with the Firefox. The text logs are generating. You can use this kind of functionality to debug further for your testing. Yeah. Now we've gone through the cross-browser testing as well. Correct. Now consider. Now you have the heavy UI and normal UI changes being happening on your website. Correct. And there is a CSS changes being happening. So how would you capture those kind of changes using cross-browser? Would you be able to capture using your normal UI automation script or the cross-browser testing? I don't, we can, but it's not the right way to do, right? You can do it like, let's identify the styles, verify those with the elements, everything. But every element sender differently on different browsers, correct? So how to capture those kind of issues? You can use the visual regression testing. Now, what is visual regression testing? So it captures the pixels changes by comparing with your base images. So it helps you to prevent to push your production issues like UI related issues to the production. Let me give you the example. So this is a local host website. This is a small website we have. Now you can see first name is over here. Let me change it at the end. Okay, let me reload it. So if you can see, there is a at the rate replaced with there. It's a small change, but how would you capture those things? So you can use the Percy product of the BrowserStack, which used for the visual regression testing. So I already run the session for you to save the time. Correct. We'll share all the details via the repo. So this is the original screen. This is the new screen. Now, if you see, it captures this. There is a slight change over here. So you can prevent these kind of issues. Also, it helps you to increase your browser coverage as well. You can see Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and mobile view as well. And different view you can use it. So this is how you can use the visual regression testing as well.
Absolutely. Okay. So I think since you started with local, so in the community, while looking through, we have one common problem statement coming: how to test on local environment where it is inside a VPN. So will you help us to drive through how that can be done?
Yeah, definitely, Adish. Yeah, this is a perfect example, right? We used to also face the similar kind of issue. Okay, I'm taking the same example again. Localhost 3000. Okay, now I'll use the live product of the BrowserStack, which provides a multiple platforms like multiple browser and the platforms. Okay, I'll just start the session to check how the local is working, correct, in the BrowserStack. So basically, BrowserStack provides the local testing app, which allows you to test the local apps or the environments behind your VPNs, correct? Staging environments behind the VPN. You can see this is accessible. Currently, it is a remote browser, which been popped up in the Chrome 114 version in the OS X Mixer, but you are able to access those things. Now, this is the manual testing part. Correct? Now, question comes, how would you integrate with your automated scripts? Like we saw over here. Very simple. Again, taking the Nightwatch example, just you use this plugin Nightwatch BrowserStack, mark it as a 2, and it will execute. You just have to run the script. It will start the local binary, connect to BrowserStack. It will start the session. Okay, let me give you the example as well. Here is I already ran the session again. There is the local test we executed, and you can see the demo. This is how you are using the local host, and it's opening, correct? And the script being executed. This is how you can achieve the local testing. Now, we have covered cross-browser testing, end-to-end case cases, UI automation, and visual regression as well. Now, what next? So we have covered everything while running the individual things. Now, this is the right time. we can configure the CI pipeline with this show, correct? So how CI pipeline helps is there are two ways to configure it, correct? There are before merging the PRs and after merging the PRs as well. So we have connected with the before merging the PRs. So whenever there is a PR and you want to push it to the main branch or the master branch, there will be checks will run automatically whenever you create the PR. So we have configured like that. So these are the checks which run. If it fails, you are not allowed to merge. So you can enable those settings as well. So this is the like a CI/CD pipeline. This is a small demo for that. If you can see, there is unit, UI, and visual testing already running. This is how you can like simply enable your CI pipeline. And once CI is enabled, if you want to integrate continuous deployment as well, you can integrate these as well. Right? And which is basically it helps to prevent issues being pushed to the master branch and the production as well. Okay, let's come back to this slide again. Yeah. Now we understood like how we can divide the automation in different buckets, right? To get the better results. But wait, question comes, what are the best practices we should follow during this automation journey? So Snehi will give us the more detail on that. Let me take you there. Okay, before that, we have an audience poll for that. I'll pause for 5 seconds so you can answer.
What is the biggest challenge you face in test automation?
Test automation.
So it's for audience. Please share your feedback here, so that it help us to understand what are the challenges you've been faced, and even we being an automation company, we will try to solve it for you.
Now over to you, Snehi. Moving ahead.
Wow, suit maintenance. Awesome. So I think with the demo that Kush was giving me, I was thinking about the time that I used to write automation scripts and execute them. I must confess, my biggest problem was the platform. If I have Mac, then setting up a Windows VM, cloning the tests there, then rerunning it and submitting, that was the biggest hassle for me. So if a cloud provider solves that for me, that is going to be a boom. So yeah, I think that was a really informative demo, Kush. Thank you so much. Now, what are the automation best practices? So what I have seen in my experience, again, talked to all my friends, my teammates, what I could see and that really worked for BrowserStack also is, first is documentation of test cases. I mean, I understand this is a pain. Everybody says that this is something that we do not want to do it, or somehow they'll look for a loophole. But as
And we do play Tom and Jerry always.
True, Ajay. That's a good one. So, but yeah, as the company evolves, we will understand the importance of documentation. And even at BrowserStack, in the beginning, we did it in G Sheets, and now we are using different tools. We have our own test case management tool that we use very extensively now. So yeah, documentation, because it gives you a good audit log. It also tells you what the feature looked like back then and now what has it evolved. So that's what else would you ask for if you're looking about a feature? Second is collective ownership of tests. What we have generally seen is writing test cases, keeping test cases is something which is very centric to QA. We at BrowserStack, we preach that it's a collective ownership. We write test cases, we share it with the developers, our product managers, everybody reviews it. We have a good to go from them so that all of us are on the same line of thought. We understand the feature properly. And it's a collective contribution. It's not something that a QA has to do it. So that is something that we very strictly do it at BrowserStack. Second is decide which tests to automate. Now, once we have documented, we have an overview of all the tests that we have written. Along while documentation, we should also add priorities. When I say priorities, I mean, which is like at BrowserStack, we call it P0, P1, P2. I know there are multiple terms to it, smoke, sanity. Every organization has their own terms. So what we're trying to say here is that let's start adding priorities when you're documenting your test cases. And when you start your automation suite, pick up the sanity ones or the P0 ones, because that gives you a very good horizontal coverage rather than an in-depth or a vertical coverage for one feature. It'll also help you doing releases faster and in a much more stabilized way. $1 million question, which is the right testing framework? There are so many in the market, which one to use? So we have a following slide where Rajesh will explain us to do this. So use it wisely, select the framework based on your needs wisely. Minimize uncertainty. Now, what do I mean by that? when the test suite evolves, we get into things like tests are flaky, the stability is a problem, things like that. And then on and above of writing an automation, on and above of writing automation scripts, we also get a hang of maintaining our automation suite. So yeah, the priority order for automation of any test case, let's keep this as a cardinal rule. When you're looking at a test case, can that be unit tested? If yes, bullseye. If not, then let's look at API first, because that gives you a faster execution. The failure rates are low. The flakiness would also be lower. And then the last would be UI test cases. Nowhere I'm here trying to say that UIs are something that we should not be writing. We definitely need our end-to-end integration tests, and they are of utter importance. But having a major suite written in UI is something that causes a lot of instability of flakiness, our favorite term which is used across automation suite. So yeah, putting your major chunks on API and unit test cases would be very good. Now, early and frequent testing, what do we mean by that? Exactly the example shown by Kush. Let's add CIs to our Git repos itself. Whichever automation suites you've written, let execute it on each PR. Add your Git checks. Don't let the PR get merged till the time all the checks are passed. And yeah, with all these things, the QA would be having a nice time with a cup of tea. And the last but not the least, once your automation suite has evolved and it has taken a journey, then record keeping is very important, because if a test has failed, why did it fail? Was it always failing? Is it a flaky test? Is it a third party library issue? Things like that. If you have those informations handy, debugging becomes very fast. Otherwise, we end up digging our older reports, maybe HTML reports or our Slack notes, things like that, where we get to know, okay, this test was always failing. And by then we've already spent about 30 to 45 minutes in a day. Yeah, that's yep. Sure. So that's something, one of the few of the best practices that we very strictly follow here at BrowserStack. Yep. You would like to add something, Ajesh?
No, I was about to say that's true. That's a bigger pain point most of us quality engineers face.
Yeah. And I think we also highlighted for the first poll question that people are almost taking about 4 hours and then they start debugging. So adding another 45 minutes or 1 hour to their result would not be very good for them. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah. So we have another audience, another poll. It's there. So how do you generally analyze your failure? How is the failure analysis done in your nodes? Is it through manual debugging? I'll be using any third-party tools, using other ML models, or something totally different? Would love to hear what that totally different also is. If you could add it into the comments.
We have demo for the observability, right? So that helps us to like fill in its list.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Meet the next generation of test debugging, reporting, and insights. BrowserStack Test Observability integrates with your existing automation test suite with zero code changes necessary. It works for every kind of automated test, whether that's unit or functional, and works even if the tests don't run on BrowserStack. Just install our SDK in your project's folder and then run your tests as you would before. With the Build Insights view, you can get a quick but detailed overview into everything that happened in your test runs, as we automatically highlight things that matter to you. Another approach unique to test observability is the ability for you to debug by errors and not just test cases. There are multiple super handy widgets like build stability, failures by folder, and more. Debugging with test observability is a breeze. Clicking on a test takes you straight into timeline debugging, where you can time travel through your tests. You can view video recordings of your tests alongside every kind of log in one single view. Test observability even has a smart failure analysis engine, which starts tagging tests with their failure reason by learning from your testing activities. You can even rerun a test case or build directly from here, or file a Jira ticket which automatically populates bug reports with rich metadata. With testing trends, you can see the evolution of key testing metrics and parameters over time. From flakiness to unique test cases to browser coverage, this dashboard has you covered. With the Suite Health view, you can understand which tests are failing the most, across which platforms, and how long they're taking to run, so you know which parts of your test suite or application need addressing. You can even look at the most common errors that are causing failures, so you can fix underlying issues that are impacting multiple tests. And that's a quick overview of test observability. Happy testing!
That's amazing. So now
So
I
this
know.
product is, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, please go ahead, Kush. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So we personally believe this product helped us a lot to like maintain the stability, identifying the errors. Like
Yeah.
this is super helpful for us.
Yep. And I think adding to the same, people are saying that 85% of the people are doing manual debugging. Things like a reporting tooling would be very helpful for all.
Absolutely. And I used to envy you, Snehi, when I see a piece of mind in your team using all this observability tool and provide me the answer in a click of a moment. It was good.
Fingers
Definitely.
crossed.
That's true. All right.
Yep. So yeah, I think moving forward, as I said, Ajay should be explaining us how to use or how to select the test automation framework, which is like the backbone of our entire suite. Ajay, over to you. Thank you so much.
All right. So starting with automation now, I think the biggest problem most of the engineers have is on automation framework. When you start thinking about automation framework, first decision everybody need to think about is what is the design pattern you wanted to choose. When you think about a design pattern, you have keyword driven, data driven, hybrid, project, page object model, and so on. So, and further, if you look deep into the page object model, you will have functional implementation, structural implementation. So now let's understand, let's assume you are set with the decision, what you wanted to look from the design pattern. Then next question, right? What is that automation tool you wanted to choose? And we had seen in the poll also, many people are facing challenges there. Or do you wanted to use API-based automation? So that is second decision in debate. Then comes what is the editor, which gives that most flexibility for you to integrate with fragmented tools which is available, either Slack, integration with CI/CD, whatnot. So all those possibilities you need to look from your ID. Then comes third-party libraries. Is those libraries, whenever you wanted to use something, is that library where it need to be placed, which repository that need to be there, whether it need to be in a gate. These are the first and foremost thing from an automation framework we look at. This being at left, once we decide on this has been made and we started documenting or started creating script and you placed in the repository, now comes the next part. That's in the right. That comes, you need to start creating environment. So you need to configure environment and your test automation framework need to have the capability to do the environment configuration. Then comes test data. How do you do the testing? So that's where you need to use your capability to provide there is a test data possibility which has to be embedded. Then you need to think about execution. Where should that execution happen in the cloud like BrowserStack, or should it happen in the local, or do you build the servers on the fly? So all those things need to be taken care of. Then comes the results of your run, what has happened. So, and the results and whether it has sufficient information to do a debugging and understand, so that the life of an SD or SDET is going to be smooth. And finally, this need to be logged into an test management reporting tool so that the final traceability from requirement to the failure, everything is been there. So this would be a typical automation framework, which we need to start thinking from that. Now, Kushnehi, after building this setup, now what is next? Are we done? Or how can I see these suits are actually helping them?
That's a good question and a tough one for both of us, Ajesh. But yeah, no, we're definitely not done yet. Now we need to learn. So for everybody, we need to learn to now utilize. Now we've executed our automation suite. We're generating a lot of data. We are having a multiple test runs. Now, how do we utilize this information and take a data-driven judgment for any release? So for that, we at BrowserStack, we are a very metrics-driven company, and we have set up metrics for the same. We have metrics against automation suite, application under test, and wherever possible, we create our in-house tools for our day-to-day QA activities. I'll take a stab at automation suite. Kush can cover the next. So when we talk about automation suite, what we have done is we've added some metrics around stability, like how stable our suite is. We need to maintain that stability. That's our primary objective. Along with automation stability, we keep monitoring things like flakiness percentages. How much is the suite flaky? what are the always failing errors? What are the new failures? New failures would ring a bell. This also helps us that whether this particular test case or the suite is the failures that are coming in the suite, are they because of the PRs that are getting merged, or are they code driven, or whether they are third party, were they always there? So yeah, as we have been talking about, it's better coverage. Now, automation coverage. When I'm saying automation coverage, this is the code coverage as well as the automation coverage, which we execute on each of our PRs. There is a set criteria without which we cannot let the PR pass. We would not let the merging of the PR would not happen to our master or main branches. And then the last is execution time. Execution time further bifurcates into two. One is the execution time of our suite. We definitely need to monitor it, because if that is low, that means our applications are not running fine. Second is the execution time of how fast we make our new features reach to production. And what we try to aim here is more the automation. There should be an automation driven approach. And yeah, having the major set pass through the automation is what we aim for the better execution time. Yep. Over to you, Kush.
Yep, sure. So you understood the importance of the metrics for the automation suite, right? It's the same importance we have to give to the application under test. Same metrics, right? Why? Because whenever you're running the automation suite, you're running on some applications. Then the application needs to perform very well to support your automation suite. If your application is not performing well, your automation suite metrics will be like go on toss. So like some of the examples of the metrics like error logs, you should have error logs on place, alerts in place for the exceptions, API response time, scores, DB activities. You should have those metrics ready whenever you are performing the automation to track it back. Now it comes to the in-house tool to support day-to-day activities, right? So we all know automation is for like UI automation, API automation, visual regression, that we already covered those things. But in day-to-day activities for the QA, specifically for the QA, we perform a lot of steps to execute our test cases, perform a lot of activities. Those are like very repeatable, correct? So to automate those things, we have built up some of the utilities. We have built up some of the dashboards like Chrome extensions, which basically like giving the example, like we want to create some of the user, like bulk of users, or like some of the user at some of the stage. You have to execute some of the scripts. So we have built up an extension. Will give you the result within the seconds, right? So it saves the time because we created this utility because we track the metrics on day-to-day basis as well. Like the manual QA time, how much time we are spending in the manual testing, how much time we are spending in the regression time. So these tools or the utilities help us to improve our productivity and help us to maintain our product uptime as well. Right? So yeah, so this is all about like what are the things we are doing and what are like to maintain our uptime for the products and improve our productivity for our own quality engineering team. Like I just would like to hear your thoughts over this. Is it helpful? It's helping you or not?
It's absolutely. This is amazed, and the good to go dashboard and those things, and to make it very simple, right? See, dashboards are the one which gives us the what's happening. So when take an example about, for example, four-wheeler, the dashboard gives a lot of information and checks whether you have a right tire pressure, and it gives you the right information, what is wrong, all those things. Similarly, your dashboard is the one which gives us the files about what's going wrong in terms of the PR, what is getting reverted, all those informations are there. Definitely, that is the best way to go ahead and provide the input. And that's really helped me a lot. All right, so now moving on. And I'd seen Snehi talking about priority and Kush talking about priority in automation scripts and all. Definitely what I've seen, choosing the right suit in the right place gives a paramount importance in terms of providing the feedbacks to the engineers when the code has been committed. So now how do we do this? Definitely your experience and talking to expert, talking to PM and getting a feedback, that's the best way to do it. Once all this has been done, when there are a few frameworks which is available, black and white framework. So black stands for blatant, latent, aspiration, critical. So black is not a spelling mistake, that is black, BLAC. So blatant. Now, how do we look at prioritizing? So blatant and critical. So that would be that which require most attention. And those would be that we need to categorize as P0, so which is then the right corner. And that either, I think, different organizations call it a smoke suit, so probably P0 would be called as a smoke suit. Then comes latent and critical. So that would have a that would need to be P1. So then when you club it, when you create a small regression suite, P0 and P1 would be the next set of suite which need to be there. Then comes aspirational and blatant. That would take P2 preference, which could be part of the large regression suite. Now, I'm sure when we are looking at the poll earlier, most of the times our team is running a regression suite, which is large regression suite, which is including P0, P1, and P2. Then comes the P3, which is latent and aspirational. So, which is aspiration could be related to certain customers. There could be multiple scenario wherein that falls into latent and aspiration, which should be extended regression suite, which would be which would be combination of P0, P1, P2, and P3. So this is the approach which we can take. Right. So let's move further. So to sum it up, so strategy for anytime release. So this is a deep dive topic which we've been talking about, and early and continuous testing. This include unit testing, integration testing, functional testing, in parallel with developments to each issue soon as they've been introduced. So then comes, as soon the code committed to branch, test script corresponding to those features need to get introduced into your regression suite. This is normally a challenge with sprint teams. And if you are able to do this, if you are able to check in your test script along with the feature when you are able to receive from your developer, that's the best thing we should be doing. Then let's move on. Automated testing. We talked about automation, introduce mechanism to auto-select test cases based on the impact for faster feedback. Enable accessibility, part of your automation. And normally in many of the organizations, what we are seeing is accessibility is done at the last. And that takes a lot of problem. And similarly, performance and accessibility are done at the last, which could create another P0 issues, and the cost of quality is rocket ship. So that's another. Then more collaborative culture. So Snehi talked in detail. Quality is not just a responsibility of QA. It is a collaborative responsibility, which we saw in the earlier starting slide itself, different personas. So everyone plays a bigger role in quality. Continuous integration, Kush has detailed explanation on it. Then realistic test environment. So this is another important piece. So most of nowadays, if you look at, we have simulators, and real devices available. So what is that we need? So the feedback you get from the real devices are different. So that cannot be matched with any other simulators or emulators what you use. And even though you might be able to get the test coverage done, but from the customer problem never end, it will still come. So realistic test environment play a pivotal role. So now, how do you get to that? Minimize the time spent on test infrastructure. So that's another area in terms of realistic environment you need to think through. How do you get that? Identify the ways to get early access to the upcoming devices and software update. If you're able to understand this is so and so software is coming and you're able to get the pre-release, then whatnot. You will also make sure your product is ready with that particular updates. Identify the ways to perform cross-browser testing in less time and cost. Identify ways to perform cross-browser testing in less than time and cost that we already said. And I would like to highlight from BrowserStack, we provided day zero access to latest devices like iPhone 13, 14, and Google Pixel 7. And we are thrilled to when say that announce day -2 access to Samsung 23 and 23 Ultra devices also being given. Then moving on, we have security testing, monitoring, and providing feedback. So customer feedback loop and feedback loop from the testing team and from everything, that also have to be very important piece. Documentation and reporting and adapting to quality metrics. These are the pivotal things which will make your journey easier, and you will be able to plan anytime releases. Let's move forward. So what is our roadmap journey? So we wanted to look at, we had seen fragmented tools which has been available in the market. And basically, if you call out in day to day, we have web testing, app testing. Then if you take a web testing, we further have manual testing, test automation, test management, optimization, a lot more things are there. And similarly for apps also the same thing continues. Now, BrowserStack is trying to collate everything together and bring out a BrowserStack test platform so that this is for the SD, this is for the STET. You don't have to run around to find out what are the tools which will integrate better with me. And we have solutions from SDKs or else in standalone apps or else a cloud provider, all the applications availabilities are there. And we have few products which is in currently which is available and which is currently working on accessibility testing, test observability, accessibility test management, visual automation for app. These are currently alive. And we have few more product which is coming, API testing, automation grade, accessibility automation, API automation, low code, no code, and so on. So these are the things which we wanted to make sure. We wanted to make sure the life of an SDET and SD or whomever related with testing is simplified. So that is our vision going forward. So what do we have further? Okay. Now, having said all this, which product would you add value to your current testing flow? Probably you could give your feedback in the poll which has been posted in front of your screen, and we can further move on. This will be there. Let's move on to the next slide. And the all references what we talked about is available here. Probably you could put that in their channel, in their chat room, so that even our audience should be able to access them and make best of use of it. Okay, let's move on. So I'm sure Preeti and Afreen been doing a great job on answering the question which is coming there. Is there anything left for us to look into it? So what is now unanswered? Can we look at?
Like
Okay,
one of the
so-
question is,
Yeah.
when it comes to scaling the automation, what challenges have you encountered? What strategies have proven most effective in overcoming them? So, Ajish, would you like to answer those?
Yeah, so I think we already covered during our discussion in terms of scaling, having the right infrastructure selected, right test platform to choose on. So when for our scenario, we have established all our test infrastructure is scalable using our K8s, and all those things have been set up. So while you set up your environment and your automation suite, we also need to make sure you have the strategy in place using those specific examples which you gave could enable you to get this one. Or anything you want to add, Kush, on top of this?
No, like mostly like we need to like understood how we want to divide your automation framework on the different methods, which we already covered.
Yeah.
And
So what do we have next?
Like-
Is there a blog documentation that explains and provides pros and cons of these different types of tests? Yeah, there are documents. Probably we should paste that in the chat. So we will do that. Then I have used Nightwatch JS extensively a few years ago. Kudos to BrowserStack for taking it to the next level. Thanks for sharing your feedback. And can you show how this is done in mobile? You wanted to
Yeah,
give that
so-
example, Kush?
So basically, okay, let me give you the example for this site only. Consider this is the script only, and you want to execute on the mobile desktop, mobile devices, right? You just have to provide the mobile versions. You have to set up over here. There are some capabilities which you provide, mobile devices, mobile version, and it will run on your automate product on the same product with the mobile devices as well. Now, if you have the applications which you want to run for like on the BrowserStack, you can use the app automate product. If you want to use it for the visual regression testing, we have the app visual regression testing as well. So there is proper documentation is already there. We can like send it to the links for the documentation as well.
Makes sense. And I think we have one question coming, Fernando. So he's asking about, is there any recommendation for examples to execute within CI/CD cycle? So I think you are going to share the repo information to him, right? So I think he should be able to use that. So yes, that will be there. Then my biggest challenge is making my Cypress test the same thing in 6 languages. Sneha, you want to pick it?
Yeah, I think localization testing is a pain, and okay, I might not have an answer, but that's yeah. I mean, sorry, I might not have an answer on top of my head right now for this. Kush,
Yeah,
do you have some
maybe I
suggestion?
think yeah. Please go on, Kush. Yeah.
Yeah, BrowserStack does support that. We have the capabilities for those things. You can use the automate product and app automate product for the local testing as well. You provide the capabilities, it will help you to execute those test cases as well.
And we have documentation available so that when in our
Yeah.
BrowserStack there is a in detail, and the one thing which you can bank on BrowserStack is in terms of the documentations, the best practices in automation, everything will be available, and you'll get it. You can get it in case you don't. Please connect with us, and we'll be able to help you there.
Sure. So there is one more question is like, how easy to report the results from the CI in different browser in BrowserStack test management tool? So yes, so we are providing via the observability tool. Those features are coming in the test management tools as well. You can integrate with your CI, and like that report will be published to your test management tool, as Ajay showed earlier as well. There are possibilities. So currently we are pushing the result traceability. Same you can do it. You will able to do it with the test management tools as well. So you don't need to like add extra configuration to over there. Like would be very minimalistic configuration. Just enable those things. Like I show you an example. Enable the like plugin, and you'll be able to post those results.
Okay. Right. I think there was a question: are we going to demo and performance? Performance part is not planned for this, but when we are coming out with a performance evaluation tool separately, that is still not launched. So there is something which is you can wait. We'll be sharing next session in terms of that. So that is not there now. And moving on, can you tie manual live testing with observability?
So
See, you want to answer it?
yeah, currently that could be a good ask. Currently we don't support it, but yeah, I see the need to it. Let me take it up internally in my team. No, as a short answer, currently a manual live testing would not be supported inside observability. Observability is majorly written. It's a tool which is created for our automation frameworks. But yeah, thank you, Carlos. I'll take it forward with my team. That's it.
Maybe one double check on that probably. Yeah, what is that? I mean, observability realm we are trying to solve was different, and this is more towards doing the testing manually, and you're trying to analyze. That is what it happens in live. So maybe you'll have to double tap and understand what is the use case here.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on. When we execute P0 as part of Smoke Suite, why do we need to execute for 3 quadrant? All right, basically that's a nice way to look into it. And you rightly said, it need not be part of all the quadrant. And see what happens is, for certain branches, it's again based on the strategy what you follow. I mean, just to classify, we have mentioned these all things are available. But ideally, if you say that if you are able to cover within separate, when whatever the strategy it is been given, you can follow that. Which is just to mention it, it is a quadrant which is then been there. That is why it has been explained there. So it is up to the quality strategy which your product requirement is there. You can follow that. There is no hard and fast rule for this. Hello, does BrowserStack offer security testing as well? So as of now, there is no in-house product which is there. So probably that's an area where we might look, but I don't have the answer at this point of time. Okay, so looking forward, API testing. to the API testing. Then
One more is that, like, how does BrowserStack automation platform support low automation code methodologies, and what features are available to facilitate this moment? So just give you the brief. We are like ramping up that particular product. It will be available soon, and yeah, those like features would be available soon. Will keep you guys updated. Please check on the BrowserStack sites.
what would be the best way to test website which contain more than 40 different pages and in 6 different languages? I think this is similar to the earlier one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that we can move on.
What is the most important design framework to learn and use? Like, again, we gave you the like basics, how to choose the framework, right? What are the factors you have to consider? It should be like some of the example, it should be very reusable, less maintenance, it should have good integration, good community support, and should be like less learning curve for that. So that there is no specific framework you can use, but these are the factors you can consider while choosing the framework. Again, it depends on your websites or your use cases.
Snehi, there is one interesting question for you. How do you reduce flaky test?
So I think how do you reduce flaky tests? First, we need to analyze that which are our flaky tests. And then, just like we were talking about, you need some way to figure out maybe it's a typical element, which is if you're talking about UI test cases, per se, if there's a typical element that is causing the failure across multiple test cases, is that the reason of flakiness? There are set coding standards, have people written static waits, or they have things like that, static waits, element not visible, or if there is a third-party library that you're using, is that on their staging environment not behaving properly? Things like this. So to reduce a flaky test, you need to first drill down the reason of failure. And for that itself, we said that you need to have data kept. You need to have a reporting in place to give you that visualization that why, or this was the trend of the test case. And this is where the error was coming. And these were the kind of errors that have come in. So if we could summarize the reason of flakiness, then yes, fixing them also becomes very easy. So that identification of the reason becomes easier once you have a visual representation of how that test has worked in the last time.
Okay, there is another question on mobile. Is the automation of scanning QR code with will be coming soon for BrowserStack? I think this is already there with our mobile apps. So is there anything specifically maybe we'll have to double tap? So this is already available for our mobile apps actually.
What is the best practice for choosing the automation candidates? Like as Nehi explained, right? The priorities, like what cases will give you the best ROIs? Like considering the P0, P1s, will it show like will it cover 80% of your features? Those are like will be your ROI cases. Consider those. So based on these factors, you can choose the automation candidates. You said the visual regression tool doesn't require any code change for the integration in any automation framework in any platform. Am I right? No, it does require small change when you are integrating with automation framework, but it provides you the plugin. What changes are required? Enable those plugins, and whenever you have to provide the screenshot, very simple. Like, okay, let me give you the example of that as well. That this is the only code you have to add. Purchase snapshot. That's it. This very minimal code change is required to integrate with the Percy or the visual regression tools. Hope that answers.
I think we have a lot more questions coming in. So I'm not sure whether we will have time to complete them all. But let's have a revert. So probably let's have the remaining question answered through an email. So that could be another way to handle it.